Welcome to the Alarpa Podcast, the home for cultural chit-chat in and outside Madrid. People will talk.
That was quite good what we got there.
Podcast has started.
Okay.
Don't worry, we'll talk about how great that was in part 2. Here's a question for you. All right, Egyptian boy. 3,000 years ago, 14 years old, Blur or Oasis?
Blur.
Oh, are you sure?
Sure.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking you that question, you already know, is because we were there. You can check out our picture on Instagram and also on our website, which we are currently renovating, larpamedia.com. We were at the Caixaforum last night, or last week, I should say, messing around with musical instruments and from the great and the good of times gone by. So ancient Greek, Egyptian, Roman, that kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about that in part 2, because you are not only our musical expert, but I think you have a community college degree in Egyptology or something.
A community college, yeah. A musical expert, I don't know where that come from, but...
Because you're in a band, aren't you?
No.
Okay. I thought you were in...
Do you want us to start our own band?
I would love that. If Robbie Williams can get the World Cup gig, I think we should be in with a shout of something major.
We already have a name anyway, and it's musical, so...
El Arpa?
Yeah.
Actually, that's also why we went there, no? Because there's a really cool thing there. Again, we'll elaborate in part 2, but they had a map showing the spread of different instruments across the world. So traditionally, we'd see those maps with the spread of people. How did people get to where did they come from? How did they spread across the different continents and settle? And that's what we saw with the musical instruments, because of course those people were taking instruments with them as well. So, they're bringing things, no?
They were.
Yeah, exactly. So
it was very interesting.
It was very interesting. It was a great, super day, fun day out, fun for all the family. So, and also you've been watching the old Mundial, have you?
Not that much, really.
No, not really.
You?
No. A little bit, yeah.
Only the 8 o'clock matches?
Well, because I'm working during the day. But yeah.
Right.
But this whole Messi Ronaldo thing, very annoying. Because Messi missed a penalty the day after Ronaldo scored a penalty.
Well, but you shouldn't compare them to each other. And Messi always gets nervous in national matches.
That is rubbish. Sorry. That I should have said that in a nicer way. That's rubbish. Oh, no, I can't do it. No, but that is a stereotype though. He's the man's been to 3 finals, 2 Copa America finals and 1 World Cup final. And I'm tired of saying this, but this is not a football podcast. Why are we talking about this?
Because you always talk about football.
I know, it's a bad habit. Speaking of which, Box Football World Cup edition. I'm in it, so do buy it online at the website. But Ronaldo is a great player. There's no doubt about that. Messi's a far better player though. He's one weakness, that's penalties, but he contributes more, he plays better.
So you said we weren't going to talk about football.
Yeah, but I just want to say that because
right.
I think that's important. And also as well, you might have seen Ronaldo pull up his shorts when he's taking a free kick. Flashing a little bit of leg. Messi is a lot more humble when he comes to that kind of stuff. So as I said, this is not a football podcast. Stop bringing football up, for the love of God. And also, we've been busy with our audio guide app. We mentioned that in previous podcasts. This is actually finally close to happening though. We've just re-recorded Jamboree audio guide. So I shouldn't have said that because now...
No, because you make it sound like we actually need to do things more than once and we don't get it right the first time, which is rubbish.
One take ARPA, that's what we're called in the business.
Exactly.
But no, I shouldn't have named it because then if you actually download the app and you listen to Jamboree, it's this is not as good even though they re-recorded it. I wonder what it was like when it was in the original version.
And
So
then they'll ask us to put the original one just to compare.
exactly, yeah. And then like they'll go, oh, both are bad, but the second one is better. So fair play. You're moving in the right direction. So yeah, so we have obviously lots of exhibitions pending as well because that's what we do, and we uploaded a video recently to YouTube 2 weeks ago where we went to, well, I went to the Spanish Civil War exhibition, but we should definitely go there.
This is becoming a theme.
I know, 2 podcasts running, and I've ditched you.
Cheers.
Because it was great. It was great though. I mean, it's called No Pastoran, so obviously it was from the perspective of people defending Madrid from the oncoming Franco troops, and different stories, different pictures, and they had like video footage as well of aerial bombardments and people fleeing the city. So
You only saw a little bit anyway, according to yourself. So
what's that?
you only saw a little bit, according to yourself.
That is true. The most amazing thing, though, just to delve into this very quickly, is that you can see pictures of people whose, their profiles basically, when they joined up, they took their pictures and they had their marriage status, their address, and all these things. So seeing where they lived, popular addresses in Goya, Prince de Vergara, made it all seem a bit more real, and brought the story a little bit closer as well. So I think we might have mentioned it on a previous podcast. I went to the San Isidro Museum, and they talk about like finding these mammoth bones in Rivas, for example. So like when they kind of like designate the area, it kind of makes it a bit more immediate and has a huge, bigger impact on you. So, and one guy, genuinely, you can see it in the video. He looks like Sergio Ramos. You see that sequence of photographs. The last person in that looks like Sergio Ramos. So maybe it's body doubles in history. You know about that thing, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, doppelganger
Yes,
from the past. So maybe Sergio Ramos has his. So, but that's enough about football, Maria. Jesus.
Well,
Oh my
I
God.
don't know how we always end up talking about that.
So, well, you're right. So we'll finish with part 1 and the football chat. In part 2, we will be talking about musical instruments in ancient times, and we'll roll up with part 3 as per usual. So join us then. Part 2 of the show. You're almost going to sneeze there, weren't you?
No, it's just breathing because it's so hot.
Sorry, we had the fan
No,
on.
like in the city in general.
I know, yeah, it is crazy at the moment. So, I shall defer to your greater knowledge in the subject.
Of heat?
Musical instruments
I know.
in bygone times. So, you were very excited about this exhibition in particular. And you
Yes.
very graciously went with me after I ditched you for the other 2 ones.
I know, well, not everybody like you.
So, what was the biggest factor that pulled you in?
I just thought it was a bit of an unexplored topic. I mean, when we study ancient history, we always look a little bit, or they always appear the instrument somehow or music somehow, but very, very, very little. And in general, it's just a subject that not much is known about, although we have a lot of evidence, but it's really hard to reconstruct it. So, I don't know, I was just really interested to see what instruments they had and what they managed to pull together with regard to what the music sounded like and what they used it for and so on.
That is quite interesting because obviously they don't have much to work with. Like in the Roman section, they said very little Roman music survived, so there is guesswork more or less, no? But also as well, you told me a very interesting thing. This can be our jumping off point. There's a painting of a man with his eyes closed playing an instrument, and the debate is raging about whether he's blind or he's just closing his eyes like David Gray and bopping his head left or right while he's jamming. So what was the original theory? What was the new theory? And now what's the conjecture?
I think Ray Charles would have been more of a or Stevie Wonder, but hey, we have David Gray.
If he's blind
you know,
though,
children of the 90s.
if he's blind,
Okay.
if he's not blind, then you can't use those lads like
Those the good old lads. Okay.
the boys.
Yes. Well, he's called the blind harpist. Like when I was at school, we studied it as the blind harpist.
Okay.
But the theory was at first that he was blind, and then maybe he had some special arrangement to be the musician there in the court. And then actually the theories moved probably with I was going to say post-processualism, which is a trend in archaeology that focus more on like feelings and subjective things rather than.
You should never dig up feelings.
Yes, but no, it was just like a contrast to a theory before, which was processualism, obviously. Which was more focused on like very objective and analytical things.
Can you say that term louder?
Processualism?
Okay, good, because every time you were saying that for the last few times, it was like, well, obviously the theory.
Okay, processualism and post-processualism.
Okay, but like, that's interesting, because like that kind of leads into my next question anyway, which is, how can there be a debate about this? Because, well, I guess you could apply that to a lot of things you're talking about in the ancient times, but it seems there's nothing you can really base your. Well, obviously, I guess there are things you can base your argument on. What are they basing their arguments on? Because.
Well, before it was just plain simple. They just saw somebody that didn't have the eyes opened, and they assumed he was blind.
So it was just very intuitive, I guess. No.
Yeah, just taking it at face value, which is what interpretations used to do. But then later on, they say, well, wait a minute, like. Many other things are very realistic in Egyptian depictions with regards to feelings and certain characteristics. So why couldn't it be that they're just depicting him with the eyes closed because he's just so moved by the music he's playing, which is something that artists often do.
David Gray, to use one recent example.
Indeed. So, well, that was a theory. Now, the latest I heard was that they were back to saying that that was rubbish and he was actually blind.
Speaking of music, Boyzone are back, and David Gray has a song called Babylon, which was an ancient city. So
very true, yes. It all ties in.
So, basically, right, I asked you a question at the exhibition as well, which is also connected to this. Now we have music that is fun. People have sessions, especially in Irish pubs, and I'm sure other places as well. People just play for the crack, for the joy of music, for playing with other people, drinking, and all these different things. And there's different kind of social applications to it. I guess because our society is a bit looser, not looser, but less rigid in hierarchy and ritual and everything as well. So it's probably reflecting those things. Obviously, it's happened over a long period of time, so it's very hard to make a comparison with now and the current musical culture. But it's hard for me to imagine someone playing a horn or blowing into a pipe just for the fun of it. But they probably did, no? Or was music very controlled in ancient societies? Well, focus on Egypt, for example.
I think you know the answer to that, but I'll explain it to you.
I don't know the answer, so please tell me. I'm asking you.
Well, I mean, there are two realms. One is the official one, like with everything in ancient times, to be honest. But I know, but one is the official one, where music would have been used to, in the palace and temples for the rituals, even like for going to war.
Yeah.
All that is sort of like related to an official realm. But then there is the the old like having fun side of things.
We've spoken before about satire, and that's very prevalent in old poetry. Yeah. There must be examples in Egypt of satirical songs about Ramsey. He's got a terrible beard. I don't know.
Well, no, but if you remember, we did a podcast about another exhibition in Caixaforum, which was about Egypt.
Yeah.
About animals in Egypt.
I remember it was one of the first ones.
And there we saw some satire, pictures of like animals playing chess and all this.
Yeah, but see, that's not a social satire though.
It was, yeah.
Is it?
Yes,
Okay.
it was like because different classes were represented by different animals.
Okay.
So it was kind of like laughing at the bourgeoisie and things like that.
Okay. Interesting.
And then, well, we do have texts that speak of this satire, and they're supported by pictures. So it only makes sense that it would have also existed in a musical form.
That does make a lot of sense, yes. And we were also, well, you tell me some more of your impressions, because again, you are more the archaeological head in this podcast duo. So, what did you learn there? What kind of struck out the most? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I was surprised at the amount of loans they had from, the Louvre Museum or the British Museum, which is nice because there are pieces that you don't get to see very much.
And very ironic since they loan things easily but never give things back permanently.
Yes, exactly. Well, we might just take our own back and just keep a few. No, but there were some things, for example, like the Hathor Sistra, for example, that are like cymbals and all these instruments. Like it's like a rattle, but there are also like cymbals, and these two instruments are fairly common. We do have quite a few examples in the archaeological museum here. We have a few items too. So they were, perhaps not as surprising, but then there were other things that were quite rare. And then we had reconstructions, for example, of that very large horn.
Yeah.
Remember, and you even got to see. And I think the really nice thing about it was that you didn't just have the instruments like you can see them in the museum sometimes, but you also had, well, it was divided by sections into situations in which you use music, like we mentioned before, like war or official situations or celebrations or rites of passage, this kind of thing. And also it was accompanied by certain sounds, reconstructions of the sounds, even like the odd song. So that was quite nice, I think, because you very rarely get to hear that, and also to see that with the instrument. Both things, it's quite complementary.
And you could, it's fun because you could mess around on an app as well.
And then we also had a section where we could play with instruments, which we did.
No, it's great because I think
nice.
The questions I was asking you was kind of predicated on the idea that now music is a lot freer compared to back then. But we mentioned another podcast, and I remember telling you about this in Capriccio Park, possibly last summer, about Irish funeral singing. You remember that?
I do remember.
And
Icelandic.
And Icelandic as well. So these kind of music as ritual, it's definitely something that doesn't really exist anymore. Because again, you might have a royal wedding as happened recently, and you might have specific things that are played there. But really, you can just like choose very tastefully or very cheesily for a wedding or other kind of events, and it might have personal significance for you, but have this whole cultural identity through a specific action like a wedding or a funeral, and have that represented by music that everybody could kind of understand. We've definitely lost in a big way, no?
Well, I don't think so much, because for example, for funerals, apart from hymns that usually repeat a lot, like in Catholic tradition, for example, you have, you have the Last Post, for example, which is a song that you immediately associate, in Western countries or in certain Western countries with the death, no?
Do you?
I think so, no?
I don't know. I don't think it's a thing I've heard a lot. The Last Post.
Well, but
I know what it is like, but
well, yeah, but I mean, like, you might not hear it all the time, but I mean, like, I don't know. Suppose there's an association of certain songs with certain events, no? Perhaps not to the extent that you're, but I think not to the extent that you're mentioning, because as you were saying, now you can it's less codified, so you're free to choose many other options.
That's probably what it is, but also as well, for obviously for a variety of reasons, because we're talking about a huge stretch of time here, but just our removal from these things. You can see a drone strike in 360, and the news, for example, now with like a or you can see like things happening with a drone camera. You can see like great things of great importance and very violent things, but it's through the medium of television, for example. So I think we have become a little bit distant from. I know it's a very cliche thing to say, but distant from the kind of facts of life in a way as well. So that's why we don't have this codification anymore, because we have maybe stepped back from the idea of death, and we as a culture don't really engage with it or think about it anymore because we can kind of sanitize it. No, that's one.
From a Western perspective, yes.
Yes.
I suppose, if we were in Africa, for example, it wouldn't be the case, but...
Yeah. That's very true. So Eurocentric thinking to be frowned upon. You also mentioned the last post, which is originally a military thing, no?
I believe so.
Also, you mentioned in ancient Egypt how war was used for, or music was used for war. Interesting.
Into war.
Yeah, of course, because that makes a lot of sense. But one of the actors in Band of Brothers, he said like they did basic camp before shooting this TV show, and they were like marching and singing. He said the army allows singing because they wouldn't, because it helps marching. People march faster, and he said the army wouldn't allow anything fun unless it had like some kind of utility or specific function. So that's why you have like music, which is fun and nice, but in a military context they allow it because it allows men to march longer and faster maybe, and also get themselves psyched up for and mentally ready for the battle to come as well.
I think it would serve the same purpose.
Yeah, of course. So I don't know. Anything else you want to say about this particular exhibition? No. Do you want to play a Greek funeral horn and express it that way?
No, I think it was worth a visit, because there were a lot of things that you don't get to see, and especially there were a lot of things to think about that sort of transcended music, because most of the things that we talked about while we were there weren't exactly just about music, but about aspects of society
and democracy and all these different things.
It, so.
Well, I think one takeaway you could have also is that in myth and creation stories you see a lot of similarities, especially in Europe as well. A lot of fairy tales have a common root, or a lot of mythologies have a common root, but also musical instruments obviously do as well, because this kind of human culture, the implements and where they're getting them from are the same basically, so they don't really have much to play around with. They can't get a 6-string electric guitar together, so they're going to make triangles and pipes and horns and all that kind of stuff. So there's a commonality running through all of it. That in different times and spaces you have people basically fiddling around with the same instruments.
Well, some of them were pretty elaborate, like that horn that we saw that was all like curled, like a cinnamon roll, and it was like 2 meters tall or something.
Yeah, like one. So
that was insane. I mean,
one of them will get lucky eventually. Maybe nice one. No, it was pretty fantastic, pretty epic. So yeah, if you're in the town, of course, of Madrid, go check out the Caixaforum and the Musical Instruments podcast. Not the podcast, the exhibition, but also listen to this podcast. But if you're listening to that advice, you already are listening to the podcast, so disregard that part. But do go to the... Okay, so that was a mess, so we have to recover this a little bit. Germany lost their opening of the World Cup final, or World Cup Championship, 1-0 to Mexico. Don't worry, there's a point to this. And the German media...
There's a point to this that isn't related to football?
No. It's kind of wider. Don't worry, you'll see. So the German media have been saying, like, wake up Germany and all these things. But also one paper took the angle of, like, an anthropological, sociological idea of how the German coach and the German national team reflect the German government and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, because how they're in crisis now, they're embattled, they have to kind of fight for their previous position, for example, and how they're kind of made in the good times. So Joachim Low, when he became the Germany coach, there's boom times, there's good players, there's money, and he's able to turn it into something positive without having to take a lot of risk, because he's not a natural risk taker. And they make the same allusion about the German Chancellor, about how when she was in power originally there's a lot of money, good times, and didn't have to take a lot of risks, and now they're kind of facing very similar situations. So this is referred to a previous podcast as well. New government in Spain, okay, drew against Portugal, but played pretty well, looked pretty strong. Is there some kind of anthropological link between Spain playing really well in their opening against Portugal and a new government confident. A few missteps.
Wow.
So you can answer that, and I'll just hold the microphone.
Wow,
and then
that's. I really wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say that just because people had said they were gonna play really badly, then that's why they played decent. So you caught me completely off guard. Well, I guess we'll have to see in the next few weeks for both the team and the government.
That's such a political answer.
Well, you asked me about politics, I answered about politics.
Okay, fair enough. You dodged that one pretty well. So well done. And are you happy so far with the Madrid government?
Madrid government? Well,
the Spanish government, I should say.
Yeah. Well, there's been like some ups and downs, let's say.
Okay.
Highs and lows. But there are certain things that if they do come together, I think I'll be quite happy. And to be honest, I'm quite happy that the new Minister of Culture was the director of several very important museums, which is, good news for like heritage in Spain, and see if like things get a little bit better for art and archaeology and history in general.
Yeah, because in other countries, I mean, in Ireland this year, history was taken off being a core subject, so it's not a core subject anymore. A core subject in the Irish exams before you go to university, your last year of secondary school, second level education. So what you'd say in Spanish, bachillerato, your A levels in England maybe, your in SATs in America is our leaving cert. So before, when I was doing it, history was a core subject, but it's been taken off that list now by the current government. So that's a big step backwards. We've mentioned before about Temple of the Bud also being a kind of controversial location in Madrid. Nobody knows what exactly to do with it. This guy's in charge. Great experience with museums. Madrid's the Spanish capital. This has to be the moment that this temple.
Yes, and not only Templo de Bud, but also Valle de los Caídos, where Franco is buried.
What are they going to do with that?
That's been a big ball of contention for a long time, and he wants to follow the old plan of the previous law, which defended to turn it into a museum, basically.
Okay.
And kind of like get the remains of the dictator out of there and just leave the people that naturally died there or that were buried there and turn it into a museum to explain, what happened.
Yeah, that would be popular.
Well, popular, I don't know. It would be reasonable from my point of view, but very many people oppose, as usual in Spain. So we'll see what happens. They've been arguing about it almost as long as they've been arguing about the Temple de Bud. So.
Okay, so we've spoken a lot about different things. So now, after recovering the situation a little bit more and ending on a relatively less messy note, we shall glide peacefully into part 3. So that was part 2. This is part 3. Almost confused with the number there. So thank you very much for listening. We have a consistent podcast following, but over the last month it's grown even more. So thank you very much for all those who are listening. We really do appreciate it. And of all the things that we do, the podcast remains one of the most fulfilling and enjoyable things. And it's a great record of our adventures across the city. So now that I've thanked them, it's your turn as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, mine was longer and more sincere. But you can find us on ElArpa1 on Twitter and on Instagram, on Patreon, and also ElArpaMedia.com is our website. So we've made some changes to it. We've made it look a little bit better. And we'll be back next week, of course, with another installment of the ElArpa podcast. Hope you do join us, and we'll be talking to you then. So we are saying now...
Bye.
Good luck. The ElArpa Podcast, the home for cultural chit-chat in and outside Madrid. People will talk.